Hey guys, welcome to Hustle. So this is going to be the first in our video series of content covering everything that we look at in the market, why we look at it, approaching everything from sort of a top-down perspective and trying to help you guys on your journey towards consistency and profitability. So yeah, like for us at Hustle, for me and Lewis, the main thing we look at is structure, right? So we're always trying to capture these structural plays, and we use a lot of other confluences alongside that, and essentially with any financial market, right, all we're looking at is buy or sell orders. That's it. We just quantify them in different ways to give us narrative to the market, so we can know what to expect and what to look for and how to get into entries and stuff like that. But yeah, structure gives us our overall directional bias, forms a large part of our overall trade management, targeting, where to take entries. It's the basis for basically everything, right? So before I go any further, I just want to go over what we classify the different types of structure as, right? So I'm just going to draw a typical leg in price. So we have, something like this, for instance, right? So here we get this sort of mess of structure, right? But we can classify this as three different main types of structure, right? We have our swing point. So sorry, let me just draw this on here as well. So if we have a high gets broken here, this gets taken out, so here we have our swing structure, right? So we have this swing low, because it's the lowest point before the high goes, to this swing high, right? So this is our break of structure, right, over here. This now gives us a new swing low, which is always the lowest point before the high goes, right? So this is our swing low, nothing else is, right? Now within this leg we have a couple of different types of structure as well. We have substructure here, right? So this is a low that hasn't broken anything to the left, right? Nothing in this leg. Right, so this is just a substructural break, right, and then we get this, which is a minor structure break, right, because this is part of a previous leg of price, right? Notice how this swing low to swing high breaks a previous high, right? Then we get substructure, breaks an internal leg low, right? And then we get a pro-trend swing, pro-trend emboss, right, minor break of structure, that breaks structure in a previous leg of price, right? Okay, cool. We want to capture these larger time frame trends, right? So daily, 4 hour, etc. We want to capture these trends, but we want to use lower time frame structures to get in on these trends, right? Because it gives us better risk reward, it gets us in earlier, it gets us in better positioned, it lets us run our trades for longer, it lets us use smaller stop losses, all of that stuff, right? So yeah, like say we're bullish on daily, for instance, right? This is our daily trend, right? We can also play both long and shorts within here, right? Because there's going to be different phases within this sort of overall structure of price, right? Like for instance over here we could hit this supply level, right, and we could melt off for 300 pips, something like that. That's something we want to be a part of. We don't just want to be saying, okay, we only want to trade longs in here, right? But we know these longs can give us the overall trades where we can like target new structure, what have you, right? So the way we do this mainly is by using 4 hour and 15 minute combined, right? So within this daily leg you're going to have 4 hour structures like this, right? like this, right? So within that, right, we know that potentially we could be capturing this lower high, this lower high, this lower high, and then turning it around and catching this high low, this high low, this high low, right? We should even, like, if we use 15M properly, we should even be able to get it down here, because again, on like 15M, right, let's just move this over a little bit. Because on 15M we're going to be able to see even more like fractal reversals, right? So what we're going to see here is price moving up like this, right? And then we can try and get in here so we can capture the majority of this move. Then we're going to see like a little break of structure here, so we can potentially trade this pullback down to here where we can scale into this overall short trade to continue the move on down. Obviously it's never like as clear and simple as you can make it on the line graph, but yeah, you get the idea, right? This is essentially what we're looking at, is all these structures within structures within structures, and that gives us our overall narrative and basis for most of our trades, right? So there's obviously diagrams and stuff in the PDF about all of this sort of stuff, right? But this is just give you an overall idea, and then we're actually going to go and do some sort of live chart work and show you how it works on a day-to-day basis, basically, right? So let's just remove these. Cool. So daily chart EU, right? So if we're looking at like this, and we're just going to use structure at the moment, nothing else, right? No SD levels, anything like that, right? We have had a significant break of structure here, right? We have then had, boss down, right? Sorry, no, boss up. We've had a significant break of structure up, right? And then we've fully taken out this low here, right? This swing low. Right, this swing low because it is a low that creates a new high, right? So we get this move here. This move is considerable. We get a 150 pip pullback, right? And then we create a new high. So we have a new swing low, right? Essentially, in the market at this point in time, we've done higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low fails. So now we might potentially see runs down like this, right? That's what we're thinking at this point in time, right? So within this we can then say, okay, well, potentially we can catch something from a level over here, but if we use the lower time frames, right? So over here we might see like a very clean 15M break of structure, something like that, right? At the moment we're still just seeing these lower highs, lower lows, right? So we're not trading against this at the moment. We're just waiting to see if and when this turns around, right? So cool, what do we get here? Okay, we still are creating lower lows and lower highs. At this point in time we failed to break this low. We used like bodies on wicks for breaks, right? Different stuff for Church, but yeah. So here we failed to break this low. So, you know, what we're saying now is, okay, we could potentially see a run on this high. This high could maybe be weak, maybe not, we don't know yet. This high is still strong because this is our last real break of structure, right? So at this point in time, this high is still the high we want to see get taken, right? Because we haven't had a close below here, so we can't validate this as a lower high, so we've essentially got one leg of price here, right? So when this high goes, right, we might start seeing a continued move to the upside, something like that, right? And what do we get? So let's wait and see. Okay, now we get a break of this high, right? So now, you know, we can start looking again just overall at the 4-hour picture. Does it make sense? Where does it sort of make sense to come up to at the moment? And if we're looking at the 4-hour, we've got another break of the high here, right? And we've got a break of a low here. Down. we don't really have a swing high here created, right? This is our last swing high. Right, let's just measure that and see whether it's the correct sort of amount. Yeah, 90 pips, definitely a 4-hour structure. So there's our last real significant break of structure. Right, so at this point in time we're trapped within this low, this high, right, and this low. So we know that, you know, using all the other things that we know, you know, these highs might be the target, we might be looking at something within here, we might be looking at this extreme here, something potentially like that, right? But at the moment the 4-hour is bearish, so we've seen a higher low, a higher high, a higher low, a higher high, a lower low, right? And then we get a confirmed lower high. So at this point in time, structurally, we could trade the 15-minute pullback up to here to trade short, right? And let's just go back on the 15M. Right, and as you can see, look, we pull back to just below the break of structure, and off we go to the moon, right? And we know that likely, because of all the other things we know, you know, like this liquidity is the target, etc., 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 right? So yeah, cool. Then we continue bullish on 15M. We get a run on the low. We get some form of pretty strong reaction here. What does this turn into? Because here we could, you know, we're within our rights to be looking for shorts from here, depending on what we're doing. Because we do have now on 15M, we have high, high, low. Right. Higher, low. So yeah, we could be saying this, but we know that overall in the 4-hour picture, right, because this is the high and the low that we're trapped in, we're more likely to trade up to these levels. So if we get like a pullback here, this might be to mitigate something down here to continue on up, because structurally we're thinking about that bigger picture play, right? And this is our 4-hour push, right? So this should be our 4-hour retracement to our 4-hour push again, right? And the M15, the M15 we know can do all of this sort of stuff within it and still make complete and utter sense, right? Yeah, that to that first goes there. So we've got this sort of structure going on at the moment. This to this, really to this, to this, to this, to this, to this. So we might see now a 15M pullback down to here, to a continuation up here. You know, we could see any one of a number of things, right? But yeah, like now that we've broken this high here, so we've had this next change of character, we could consider runs up to the high. Let's just see how this works out. You know, and it's important to understand what phase of the market you're in, right? Whether you're in a pro-trend push, so mainly the lower highs are going to be protected, right? You just get one run on them over here, right? Because you're in a pro-trend push, right? Or a pullback, where these are more likely going to be used as targets at points for liquidity grabs to continue the move up, right? Then we see, yeah, this, right? But again, as we understand, we could just be coming down to mitigate like this run on liquidity. This has never been mitigated. This is a flip. This is etc, 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 right? We could be coming down there, you know, we break structure again to the upside. Obviously we can take this short here because this is a pro-trend move, so you know, after this change of character here, we can look to get in on continuations down here to just capitalize on that leg. Then, as I said, we haven't really completed the 4-hour objective yet, so we start getting this continued run up. Right, and you see how important it is to keep focused on these higher time frame objectives, right? Because these are really the ones that pay the most, right? Like if you look up here, look, we start to get this really nice distribution, whatever you want to call it, really. Right? Maybe we run the highs over here, all that liquidity above. Maybe we don't. Maybe we just tank. And you can see, right? We've come up and we've much more completed that 4-hour objective at this time, right? like you can see that, yeah, with other things, premium discount, liquidity concepts, all of that sort of stuff, right? All we've been doing here is forming this massive 15M complex pullback, right? So this to this to this, right? And it's where it's really important to not get lost on the 15M and say, okay, well the 15M has gone bullish here, this is now the target, because on the 4 hour that doesn't make any sense, right? Now we start to see this continued push down, right? So we start seeing, you know, this high here goes, right? This low here goes. So now we need to ask ourselves, well, what does this bring into play? Well, now that we're pro trend, you know, these lows are the target, right, down here, and we'll see how that plays out. Right, we continue to get this very nice move down, right, the market still, we get a push back up into this mitigation here, right, but again we need to be aware that the larger structural play, we haven't gone bullish, we're not going to, well, we have gone bullish on M15, but the bigger structural play is still this to this to this, right, to all this liquidity. Right, so really what we're doing at this point in time is just monitoring and seeing how price reacts up here, right, and whether we do get that melt off, whether the 4H objective continues, right, and there we go, there we get this beautiful pro trend continuation, right, like we come up here, we give this 15M change of character here, right, we just take this high, we take this low, we come back up to respect the level that causes the change of character, the extreme, whatever it is, right, and we just melt off, right. Look at that, all around London Open, we could be stacking shorts here, 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 right, to continue this larger time frame structural move, right, and yeah, now we've got another heavy break of structure over here, so what can we expect? Well, now, we still haven't hit the 4H low, right, we haven't taken that out, so the objective is still probably the swing low, but if we start getting, you know, these V-shaped recoveries, stuff like that away, right, we might well be getting some form of pullback, back up, right, and here we go, we get this more minor sort of internal break, this chotch here, right, change of character here to here, right, and we might well start seeing a continued move back up to mitigate something in here, right, to continue this larger move down. And notice, like, we still haven't taken out, you know, this point in time, this is now our swing break, right, so we've got this to this is still the low, so until that gets taken we can still expect this pullback to continue, right. Now we've got other stuff within here, so we break this high, we form this structural low here, right, we get this low goes, right, it's change of character, not a break of structure, but the low goes, right, and then we get this continuation, right, and price just melts, right, see you later, right, but it's all because we've noticed what that larger time frame structural play is, right. Our overall idea is that on daily we've had this, sorry, let me redo that. On daily we've had this to this to this, so now the expectation is this on daily, right, so lower high. 4 hour we've had this to this to this to this to this to this to this, right, so yeah, and now on 15M we've had all of this other intraday structure in between it, like down here we've had this to this to this to this to this to this to this, to this, to this, right, and these are all moves that we can potentially capitalize on, right, and yeah, like once we start getting really good at reading structure, we can capitalize on a lot of these 15M moves. You know, a lot of them line up with really, really high probability trades, like up here, down here, some of these continuations in here, these shorts up here, these longs after the break of structure here, right, these shorts up here, up here, up here, right, these longs from down here, potentially scales in here and here, right, shorts from up here, up here, up here, shorts from here, right, like all of this makes sense because we're playing that overall structural play, right? So yeah, like I just want to go through a couple of more, just the basic terminologies we use in regards to the different types of structures that we use, just so we're not confused by anything. But yeah, this is the idea of structure, right? So let's just look at this, and we'll do this on 15M because this is predominantly the time frame we're on, right? So, right, if we look over here, right, we're just going to start from this leg of price here, right? We're going to map out swing highs and swing lows, right? So the last thing we have is this break here, right? So now our swing high is the highest point before this low goes. So this is our swing high, right? So at this point we go into a bullish phase on M15. Right, so swing high is the highest point before the low goes, right, or the lowest point before the high goes, right? Now, substructure, right? Let's just zoom in on this because this actually encompasses everything, right? So substructure is now structure internal to this range here. Right, internal to this leg of price. So these are substructure breaks, right? So that's what's down, right? And there's diagrams to explain all of this stuff, but it's just to give you a visual representation of the chart as well. And then we get stuff called minor structure as well, which is a high or a low that's in a previous leg. So here, right, but isn't big enough to be considered swing, right? Isn't the highest point below the low, isn't the lowest point below the high, etc, 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 right? And then we get changes of character as well, and most times a change of character and a minor break of structure are one and the same thing, right? It's just that first instance. So here, right, we wouldn't necessarily, let's just measure it and see whether we would or not. No, so this here, right, is 10 pips. We want a 13 pip swing to count it as a 15M swing structure, right? So this would be a minor break of structure, but it would also be a change of character because we get this high gets taken and this low gets taken. Right, so this is the idea that we can get all of these things in line, and this is why we use different things, right? Because if we go and we look at this overall, right, we're aware that we're in that larger 4H swing, right? This low went here, so our 4H structure, right, is this push here, this high to this low, right? Now we can see up here that we've initially broken significant 15M swing structure from very, very good levels, right? So we've got this to this, right? So we know that we've got this whole bearish push. Yes, we've had a break of structure up, but it doesn't take us completely out of alignment because we've got this whole larger push down. So our whole structural idea is this to this to this at the moment, right? So when we get a change of character back, and it realigns our 15M time frame with our bearish 4H bias, and we then come into, you know, this 15M doji here, right? We get that change of character. That's when we can definitely start looking for shorts to clear out all of these lows, right? And it's really important to understand that, you know, structure can give us both counter trend trades, you know, from here, right? But overall, it can give us pro trend trades as well, right? And we can use this to capitalize on a bunch of opportunities in the market, right? Yeah, that's the basic overview of structure, really. You know, we'll end up doing more content on this. We will end up, you know, this will be covered in live webinars, etc. It's covered in depth in the PDF. It's just, you know, the idea of using it to help define the directions of the trades, where we manage, etc., etc., etc. But this would all come in the whole putting it together series, right? This is just structure. We obviously use other things, and other things are... It's difficult to say what's the most important, right? Like, in my view, structure. But I know, you know, other people might have different opinions, and that's fine, you know. We like to try and trade one understanding here, and that understanding is that structure is king, everything else is confluence, you know, and that when we get our structural ideas correct, the rest of the stuff is used to build narratives to help us enter those trades, right? Like, the ideal trade planning should be, do I have a structural idea? Yes. Right, cool. Does supply and demand support that structural idea? Yes, cool. Does liquidity support that, both of those ideas, right? So here, our structural idea is that we want to catch this 4H pro trend move, right? Does supply support this? Yes, we have an unmitigated supply level that has caused this. You know, we can quite clearly see that supply is in control at the moment, even though we're breaking these highs. Yes, this is probably more just being built as liquidity for a future mitigation, right? And now we've got, does liquidity support our thesis, right? And we've got, yes, equal highs are here, right? And we get all of this liquidity built here. We get these larger set of equal lows. Well, we've got a massive set of equal lows across there, basically. But yeah, this gives us our whole idea, right? So yeah, cool, guys. Any questions? As always, DMs are open. Feel free. Always open for a chat. And yeah, we'll be covering this stuff in depth throughout the Discord, throughout the PDF, throughout the live webinars, stuff like that.